Today we are going to talk about a little update on history repeating itself for Ethereum based on the Bitcoin chart. If you didn't catch the last video a few days ago on this, might be nice to have a little bit of background. Feel free to go watch it. I'll link it to this video here. But for those of you who are looking to stay current, I thought we would do a little update because we have had a nice little pullback here that I think a lot of people didn't expect, including me in some ways. I don't think it's necessarily following history to a T, and that doesn't scare me. But I think it's nice to be able to talk about. And as we talked about, history doesn't repeat, but it often rhymes. So let's get into it. If you remember last time, we left off with this chart that really it places the Bitcoin breakout from lower high structure that happened maybe about a month ago, about a month and a half. And it places that chart to the Ethereum chart. And a lot of similarities were here, right? We got this sharp increase. Let's see if I can get it a little bigger for you guys. There you go. We got this sharp increase almost to the lower high trend line. Beforehand, we got this double negative pump with a nice little bounce in between, kind of forming a double bottom. A nice move through the line, a nice retest, a nice pump before labor market data, and then a little bit of a sell-off, right? That's kind of where we left off. Labor market data came in at 4.2, more jobs created than expected. Overall, in line with the market really liked it. It had a super strong move up on Friday because of it. And then now, start of this week, we've kind of started to see a little bit of a break lower. And if we go into a little bit of a shorter time frame here, let's just get some ideas. Yeah, this is helpful. Maybe I'll go 1 month just so it's a little better. There we go. So this kind of shows you, this pullback totally made sense. Didn't go as deep as actually the one that Bitcoin had, where the Bitcoin one was really getting nervous into elections and had a nice pullback into that. We kind of just rocketed immediately after labor data, but then you've seen this kind of sudden move to the downside today and really after close of the US markets today. And you've seen these liquidation wicks down, which can be really scary, right? You drop a few percent in a few minutes and then suddenly it can, spike back up again. It can be really, really volatile. And that, if you're new to the cryptoverse, can be really scary because it doesn't really happen with stocks unless you've, for example, day traded penny stocks like I have in the past. You really have never probably seen price action like that if you've just been in, S&P, even large cap stocks like Apple will never do this. And that's just because there's too much size. It's probably not going to move that strongly versus, Bitcoin's still at quite a small market cap in comparison to some of the largest indexes and companies. So it can still move quite aggressively and quite quickly. And you can kind of see that if I go to the 1 day. So you can see, here you go. These were right after the close today. Just huge liquidation spikes down. Like this is a 6.5% move in a matter of, 5 minutes. Yeah. So that's fast, right? And in the future, know that these can be nice buying opportunities. Yeah, you're kind of catching a falling knife, but if you're looking for the long term, it can be quite nice to just put in, especially like after hours, put in an order nice and low that you think it might not hit, and then hopefully you get picked up on a liquidation spike. That's a huge win, right? I wouldn't say sells are smart or really even stop losses because crypto is tough to stop loss unless you're day trading. But again, I'm talking about holding for the long term, multiple months, potentially over a year, all that type of stuff for this bull market cycle. And then, of course, for the long haul with some of my positions into the next cycle. So anyway, just wanted to touch base on some things there. Do not fear the liquidation spikes. They're pretty normal, and honestly, they're healthy to see. I'm pretty excited that we're getting some of those. The market was getting heavily over leveraged, and frankly, to continue a healthy bull market that I think we want for the next year and not the short term, we needed some cool off, and we needed to flush out a little bit of liquidity in the market, and I think we got that. We got over 600 million of liquidations in the Bitcoin market today, which is pretty huge. So that's kind of a pro. As far as history, I don't think this is necessarily done. I think we could still see this really strong move up towards 6,000 into January, but it's kind of undeniable that this is definitely a little bit of a divergence, right? This is where Bitcoin was going parabolic at this point, and we've seen a pretty sharp sell-off. Do we think that's going to be an issue as far as the long term? No, I'm not worried about it. Frankly, Ethereum is above all resistance, all support levels still. The first major one being right at about 3,500. I can draw this line out for you guys. And even if it broke 3,500, I wouldn't be that worried about it. But you can see kind of that 3,550, close to where we wicked down to. We're not getting close below it. I'm not too worried about it. And frankly, we had quite an explosive rally here from 3,000 all the way up to 4,100 almost on Friday, which was a 35% move in just, let's see, November 20th to December 8th. So less than 3 weeks, 35%. I think pulling back, quite normal, doesn't worry me. If you're new to the cryptoverse, take a breath, recognize it's okay. Even if you have bought this local top, it's going to be okay. The long term, I think, looks really bullish, and we'll talk about that. For now, we're diverging. I think this is still the likely kind of medium term outcome. I think by January we will be much higher than these prices, but who knows? Maybe we get some more pullback for a while. And frankly, if anyone claims they can tell you exactly where it's headed, you probably should distrust them, because the markets are volatile. You can get a general idea of direction, but it's pretty hard to know exactly what's going to happen. And if someone did know exactly what was going to happen, they would have endless amounts of money. So just remember that. Yeah, don't fear the liquidation spikes. As far as the larger bull market kind of being intact, let's take a look at some of those fundamentals, because I think that's really important for keeping your head screwed on straight when things are a little bit red and volatile. So first thing we can look at, I think, we can go to the classics. ETH BTC still looks good to me. I can show you, remember, we got that second weekly close above the 50-week SMA, which you can see is down here at 0.0367. And that's great. I think that really confirms that the bottom is in. We could potentially go below that, but right now we haven't even really tested that. So keep an eye on that level. I think even if it goes below it, we won't go below 0.032. I think that's the low for the cycle. But who knows? If there's a black swan or something like that, potentially it could go. But yeah, I think this is holding up quite nicely considering the volatility. The DXY still looks kind of in no man's land, decently bearish here. I think we need a breakdown below this 105.5 level for me to really feel bullish, but it's also definitely not looking bearish for crypto. We're not back testing 107, all those types of things. So far, this has been lower highs and lower lows. So doesn't worry me. That still looks pretty bearish. And yeah, kind of a neutral for crypto right now. The last, one of the other ones we'll talk about is Bitcoin dominance. This is the only one that potentially scares me. But really, if you zoom out properly, you can see this strong trend line, and we just got a retest of it with these wicks. And frankly, that's kind of a good sign. That's a bearish sign on Bitcoin dominance, which is good for altcoins, to get that back test and hopefully hold of this support line as now resistance. So I think unless we get some strong closes above this line, I'm not too worried about altcoins. If we get strong closes above this line, we might see, a continued run in Bitcoin and a little bit of more lag by altcoins. But for now, I think we're still in that altcoin season mode as long as this stays below. But it has had a decent move here. You can see in the last 5 days, and really just in the last few hours, these were those liquidation spikes. We got some pretty big moves in the Bitcoin dominance, and another one this evening. So it is, kind of making some pushes at that. Again, I think it's more wicks right now and not something that's looking sustained, but it always could be. So keep that in mind. As far as Bitcoin itself, it's holding up fine. It's had these wicks to the downside, wicking down to, 94, that type of thing. But last week, remember, we wicked all the way down to like 91. And so it's much less volatile. This doesn't even show the whole candle. It's much less volatile than that. Um, so I guess, you're kind of, I think this is healthy for the market, get a little bit of consolidation, but it is different from that Bitcoin breakout. And some of that could just be the Trump trade. I think when that Bitcoin had that breakout, it had the beauty of, just having had a election that elected President Trump, and stocks were absolutely taking off, right? Like if we look at the S&P back on November 5th, this move is pretty insane for a major index. Like we had this huge gap higher, as you can see, and from the gap point to the top, it was a 4% move in the S&P in just 6 days. And that kind of shows you the level of strength there. I mean, that was absolutely massive. Really, you got it in 2 days because this is the Monday. So really 2 days for 6% or 4. And that's pretty rare for the S&P, right? That's very volatile for the S&P. And so I think Bitcoin had that influence, which was much, much more bullish than Ethereum is having the pleasure of right now. The markets are looking a little bit red right now. We're not necessarily, I mean, we're still at almost all-time highs, right? But if you look at it in comparison, we're much more, we got the labor data right here. And since we've kind of sold off a little bit, we're not getting this huge gap higher that kind of was ripping everything apart. So I think that's more likely the cause of the diversion than anything fundamentally. And I do think that will be short lived, right? I think these, the Santa trade is a real thing. It does tend to go very hard into Christmas for the stock markets and therefore often crypto. And remember, seasonality is often in January and February for Ethereum specifically. So I think you're gonna see it start to really take off. As far as exactly when we, go above 4,000 and hold it, I think it depends, and I think it's hard to call. I do think if Bitcoin can go above 100,000 and hold it, I think you're gonna definitely see that move above 4,000 and hold it from Ethereum. And then even if Bitcoin doesn't do that, I think Ethereum will do it without Bitcoin at some point, and ETH BTC will shoot up. That just could take potentially a little bit longer. So that's kind of where everything's at, guys. We're still not fully uninverted on this yield curve. I think that could come into play in January, maybe a little bit of a pullback in stock markets and therefore in crypto. But again, I think we'll probably be at higher valuations than we are today by the time that more major pullback comes. It's possible we get something more major in crypto now. And frankly, I think that would be healthy long term as well. I think the people wanting it to go parabolic now, I understand, but also you have to think, it's a marathon, not a sprint. You will get better returns if we don't just get a massive blow off top that stifles all the interest because of so much volatility right now. So I think if we can kind of stay consistent over the next year rather than getting all our gains in the next 2 months, I think that's really awesome and probably bullish for the long haul. So that's what I would say on the markets, guys. I think that's a good little update on. Hopefully you found it helpful on kind of this short-term divergence we're seeing from what we saw with Bitcoin. And again, I don't think it's any reason to panic. I think it could be nice buying opportunities if you still have capital on the sidelines. And I'll be talking about, where my capital is at and how I am basically fully invested now in the next few days. So if you want to check back in for that video, I would be honored. Hopefully you all are enjoying these videos. Please, if you got to this point, comment down below some of the altcoins or coins you are holding, and I'm happy to include those in future videos to really discuss some of the fun, exciting projects or interesting technicals on some of those things as altcoin season starts to ramp up. Just looking for ideas that really are going to cater to you guys as the viewers and have a good time. So hopefully you enjoyed the video, and feel free to like, subscribe, check out the next one, and I'll see you guys soon.